The end of the 18th century and beginning of the 19th century, with the publication of Ivan Kotlyarevy's novel Hennadiy, written in the living Ukrainian language, marked the beginning of the Ukrainian folk and national revival. The subsequent events of the 19th century testify to the maturation of the idea of an independent Ukraine, which was realized, albeit briefly, during the Ukrainian Revolution of 1917 to 1921.
The 19th century enriched Ukraine with outstanding representatives of the intelligentsia, such as Ivan Kotlyarevy's, Mykola Lykhach, Hrigoriy Kvitka Osnovyanenko, Ivan Poluy, Yelizaveta Milorodovich, Anton Smidovich, Ilya Mechnikov, Olena Pechilka, Agatano Krimsky, Christina Halchevska, Volodymyr Vernadsky, members of the Ruthenian Triad, Dmitry Yavornitsky, and others. Their dedication contributed to the formation of the modern Ukrainian nation.
One key figure in the state-building process was Mykola Kostomarov, the father of Ukrainian historiography and an ideologue of the national revival of Ukraine. He emphasized the differences between Ukrainians and Russians, viewing the former as heirs of democratic traditions of Rus, and the latter as creators of a despotic Moscow Tsardom and Russian Empire. Kostomarov founded the first Ukrainian socio-political and literary artistic magazine in the Russian Empire, Osnova, and supported the unity of all Ukrainian lands.
Mykola Kostomarov comprehended and analyzed the body of national chronicles. And he was one of the first to demand that historians study the activities of people in all spheres of societal life. He rationalized the interaction between nationality and statehood. He researched the Ukrainian Cossacks, in particular their composition, movements, reasons for their emergence, victories, and defeats. He believed that the Cossacks were not a hindrance to the development of statehood. According to Kostomarov, the Cossacks' inherent traditions of national freedom and democracy had a positive influence on society. He was the first to introduce into scholarly discourse the concept of the Zaporizhian Sich as a Christian Cossack republic.
Written by Kostomarov in late 1845 and early 1846, the books of the Genesis of the Ukrainian people, or the Divine Law, became a programmatic work for the Cyril and Methodius Society. The author is stressing the state's responsibility to its citizens. After all, the protection of territorial unity and political integrity by the national state also entails safeguarding the interests of individuals, along with their political and economic freedoms. Kostomarov spoke about the need to limit state power with inviolable and inalienable human rights, with the most important being the right to a dignified existence. This is why his books of the Genesis was denounced by the gendarmes as a despicable thing and a criminal manuscript.
The Russian Empire branded the best sons and daughters of Ukraine with the label of immoderate love for Ukraine. Members of the Brotherhood of Saints Cyril and Methodius were arrested, and after a year of imprisonment in the Peter and Paul fortress, Kostomarov was exiled. Thanks to the members of the Brotherhood of the Saints Cyril and Methodius, the Ukrainian national movement evolved from vague aspirations to a clear and defined goal and task: state independence, social liberation of the people, and self-governance in internal affairs.
The social mainstream of 19th century Ukraine was shaped by many outstanding women who promoted ideas of national identity, human rights, and state formation. One of the most prominent was Larissa Petrivna Kosach-Kvitka, known as Lesya Ukrainka. The Kosach family, part of the aristocracy, emphasized their Ukrainianness in many ways. Everyone spoke Ukrainian from an early age, and children wore national costumes. This was highly unusual for Kiev at the beginning of the 20th century. a time when, following the assassination of Alexander II, a period of intensified imperial sentiments and repression had begun. In fact, only 3 such families remained in the entire capital: the Lysenko, Staritsky, and Kosach families. Notably, in 1903, at the unveiling of the monument to Ivan Kotlyarsky in Poltava, Lesya Ukrainka's mother, Olena Pchilka, defied the ban on speaking in Ukrainian and addressed the audience in her native language.
A consistent supporter of the Ukrainian idea, a poet independent of Russian influences, and a thinker who was ironic and skeptical in her assessment of imperial authorities and values, at one time every effort was made to prevent us from seeing such a Lesya Ukrainka. She was meticulously censored because, in the Soviet iconography, she was intended to appear as an impeccable forerunner of socialist realism, wrote literary critic Vera Aheyeva.
Living under conditions of statelessness, Lesya Ukrainka created the literature of a nation yearning for statehood. Lesya reinterpreted the history of Ukraine and outlined paths to its liberation from the Russian Empire. This is the essence of her remarkable work. In Ukrainian literature of the time, she was nearly alone in deliberately addressing issues of statehood and national liberation as the only viable path for the survival of the Ukrainian nation. She consciously avoided the narrow, localized themes of colonial writing. Lesya viewed her people as strong, active, and capable of profound spiritual movements. In contrast, reality often showed Ukrainians' fear of fully embracing their identity. Nonetheless, she believed in the nation's spiritual strength. In one letter to Mikhailo Pavlik, Lesya Ukrainka wrote, "You know, I am still an optimist, or rather a progressive, and I believe that the world is not moving towards the worst, but towards the best, though it could be moving faster, since so much strength and so many lives are dying in vain. And in Ukraine, a lot more has to die in vain, or maybe it just seems it is in vain, before something worthwhile emerges." Prophetic words.
For that era, this was an absolute challenge, particularly within the Russian Empire. Lesya supported emancipation and movements that advocated for greater opportunities for women's self-realization.
In the latter half of the 19th century, the feminist movement began to take root in Ukraine, with Nataliya Kobrynska at its forefront. Nataliya Kobrynska, a writer, publisher, and social activist, was ahead of the trends in Europe at that time. She championed the liberation of Ukrainian women from traditional roles, advocating for their own voice and civil rights, including access to higher education. She can be considered both the first theoretician of Ukrainian classical feminism and the first practical embodiment of emancipatory ideas in Alyushina reality.
Nataliya recognized the need for economic, political, and domestic emancipation of women. She understood that achieving this required raising women's awareness of their self-worth and demonstrating how they could contribute to society. She believed this was possible only by uniting women and rallying them around progressive European ideas. Thus, as Nataliya Kobrynska's initiative in 1884 in Stanislav, now Ivano-Frankivsk, the Society of Ruthenian Women was established, the first Ukrainian women's organization. The society promoted the idea of Ukrainian unity and working for the people, particularly focusing on raising the cultural level of rural women.
Nataliya Kobrynska was a fervent advocate for the cultural unification of Western Ukrainian lands with the Naddniepryanshina. She sought to involve women from all Ukrainian lands in collaborative efforts. To this end, she initiated the creation of a women's magazine to unite the creative efforts of Alyushina women with those from Naddniepryanshina and Volyn. In June 1887, Nataliya Kobrynska, together with Olena Pchilka and with the support of Ivan Franko, published the Women's Almanac, The First Wreath. It was funded by private donations and Olena Pchilka's own resources. Nataliya Kobrynska saw the historical significance of this anthology of women's creativity in that our intelligent women felt simultaneously as Rusin and as citizen, remembering her national and public rights. The feminist worldview of the writer carries significant messages for contemporary Ukrainian women, including national centrism, state building, awakening the female spirit through literature, universal human values such as female identity, motherhood, individual freedom, vitalism, and public passion. Each of these ideological and worldview guidelines from Kobrynska remains relevant today. Let us cherish our historical memory. It is through this, according to Mikhailo Khrushchevsky, that a person becomes a personality, and people become a nation, and a country becomes a state.